Welcome to this episode of Star Wars Declassified, where we look into different facts and stories revolving around the Star Wars canon universe and lore. This week we'll look into the Rebel Alliance, how it operates in space, and the different types of vessels, both military and otherwise, it possesses. The Rebel Alliance fleet, also known as the Rebel Alliance Navy, was the naval branch of the Rebel Alliance's military forces in its war against the Galactic Empire to bring to order a new republic. The Rebel Alliance fleet was formed after the early Rebel movement became the Alliance to restore the Republic in the aftermath of the skirmish in Archeon Nebula. From there, it constantly evolved and improved with different Rebel cells always joining its cause from around the galaxy. The fleet and its activities were overseen by the Alliance High Command, who managed the logistical and the strategic matters of the Rebellion's efforts against the Galactic Empire, with Btl Akbar serving as the Admiral of the fleet. As an all-volunteer military, recruits would often come and go as they pleased without reporting it to their superiors. Such practice, however, was frowned upon. Fortunately, members would often stay with the fleet, owing to a sense of camaraderie and the impracticality of returning to their home systems, which most often than not would be under Imperial control. With the fleet constantly in motion, it would take weeks for a separated pilot to rejoin their squadron, owing in part to the scatter protocol for Rebel pilots, which established a practice of randomly choosing a path to various worlds throughout hyperspace in order to lose any possible Imperial pursuit. The Rebel fleet was composed of different classes of ships, ranging from capital ships all the way to small frigates. We'll briefly go over each ship starting from the biggest to the smallest. First up is the Carrier class, to which the Rebels only ever had one ship in this class and it wasn't even fully Rebel, rather Imperial. We're speaking of course about the Phoenix Home, which was a Quasar Fire class cruiser carrier. It was captured by the Spectre Rebel cell and briefly served in the Rebellion until it met its demise at the Battle of Atollon. Not only was the Quasar Fire a starfighter carrier that housed the cell's A-Wings, but as well it could be used as a mobile base of operations, to which it eventually was by another larger Rebel cell, the Phoenix Squadron, that absorbed the Spectres. For capital ships, the Rebellion counted primarily on Mon Calamari engineering and resources to keep their fleet competitive with the well-known MC-80 line. This came in two models, the MC-80 Liberty-type Star Cruiser, which was the basic model, and the MC-80 Home One-type Star Cruiser, which was not only larger, but more advanced and famous for its role as Btl Akbar's flagship. Each MC-80 cruiser was heavily armed with dozens of turbo lasers, ion cannons, tractor beam projectors, and shield generators, and was the Rebellion's answer when going up against a Star Destroyer. Another famous Mon Calamari cruiser that served in the Rebel fleet was the Profundity, the flagship of Admiral Raddus during the Battle of Scarif. This was an MC-75 Star Cruiser, an older Mon Calamari model. The MC-75 boasted point defense laser cannons, broadside turbo lasers, heavy ion cannons, proton torpedo launchers, and tractor beam projectors. Next are frigates, which were starships of various sizes and roles. There were only two types most commonly seen in the Alliance fleet, in the EF-76 Nebulon B escort frigate and the DP-20 frigate. The Nebulon B escort was one usually seen in majority of Rebel fleets, as it also contained a command center and hangar bays capable of housing light freighters and starfighters. They functioned in several different capacities as part of a fleet and both as a medical frigate and a Rebel cruiser, making use of its 12 turbo laser and 12 laser cannons. The DP-20 frigate was much more smaller and compact, but was also faster and carried considerable heavy firepower for a ship of its size and class. Corvettes were also a popular sight in Rebel fleets, most notably the CR-90 Corvette, best known as the Rebel blockade runners. Despite not being designed as a combat-oriented vessel, it was a popular choice for fleet commanders due to the Rebellion's limited resources. Modified Hammerhead Corvettes were also well used and were built to take heavy laser fire if needed. The Gunship Class was an uncommon sight in Rebel fleets, with Braccatok class gunships primarily only best known for serving in Dodana's Masasi Group Rebel Cell. They were anti-starfighter vessels designed purely for military use, carrying turbo lasers and concussion missile launchers. LAATs were also used by the Rebellion, but in small numbers and were very rare. They were actually restored Old Republic LAATs that were modified and did not carry 2 laser turrets like the Republic version did. Freighters were also an important part of the Rebel fleet, as they loaded and carried resources from base to base. Such freighters included the YKL-370R Nova Courier and the Rebel Tanker, which were only seen briefly in the original trilogy with the Rebel fleet at the end of Empire Strikes Back. This Rebel fleet was composed mostly of freighters, and while it was never revealed in either canon or legends what these ships truly are, I can best deduce it was these freighters shown in this scene, along with some squad pods, a CR-25 troop carrier that transported vehicle parts, and the Chevy Pete class transport shuttle, which was used by the Rebels as a space ferry. Now on the topic of freighters, not all in the Alliance were used primarily for transporting goods, but could fight as well if needed. This included the HYK-290 Light Freighter series, that were modified to drop incendiary bombs that made them most effective against infantry targets. Also the Millennium Falcon and the Ghost, 2 well-known Rebel ships, were also heavily modified freighters, that were used by the Rebellion primarily for combat situations. The Rebel fleet also carried a number of different types of transporter vessels, with the GR-75 medium transport being the most well recognized, along with smaller transporters like the E-9 Explorer, a scout transport used for light missions. For primarily military purposes, UT-60D U-Wings were used to drop troops into battle and provide cover fire for them. However, these were in severe limited supply prior to the Battle of Scarif. Afterwards, the YT-2400 Light Freighter took the U-Wing's role as an assault troop transporter in the Rebellion, making use of its 13 weapon total emplacement points. Finally, we have the starfighters of the Rebel Alliance. The most basic starfighter in the fleet were the Z-95 Headhunters, which were smaller, slightly slower, and less maneuverable than the T-65B X-Wing Starfighter, which was renowned for its speed and flexibility in battle, quickly becoming the backbone and the signature standard fighter of the Rebel fleet. The RZ-1 A-Wing Interceptors were the strike fighters of the fleet. Small, cheap, but very quick and agile, they were one of the first ships used by the early Rebellion against the Galactic Empire. The Btl Y-Wing Starfighter was the Rebellion's principal bomber fighter, often used as an assault bomber to attack enemy capital ships directly, often used in conjunction with the ASF-01 B-Wing Starfighters, whom were heavily armed Rebel Alliance single-pilot starfighter and bombers. Last but not least is the T47 Air Speeder, the Rebels' only option in the Assault Speeder class. These were modified low-altitude fighters designed for ground attack and anti-walker vessels, being most effective against AT-STs with its 2 heavy forward-facing laser cannons, and also against AT-ATs with its harpoon cannon, which is placed ahead of its tail gunner. And that is a quick roundup of all the ships seen in the Rebel Alliance fleet in canon. Let me know if I missed anything and what Star Wars content you would like for me to cover in future videos. Also, if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel to not only support it, but keep up with Star Wars news, gaming, and canon lore released every week. And consider following me on Twitter and Facebook to never miss out on the latest Star Wars related content. Thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.